Hellenic Writers Group Book Talk with Lynne and Valerie Constantine. We are excited to have them. I met Valerie many years ago at a festival in Baltimore. And you haven't changed, Valerie. Just like I remember you, you look just as beautiful. And your sister too is wonderful. I'm glad you made it finally. I've been wanting to have you come and speak to us for a long time. So
we're thrilled to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. So Stephen Galanis, our very own, will be the moderator. Well, Stephen?
Well, welcome, Lynne and Valerie. It's a pleasure to host you guys today. I been reading a little bit about your past, your experience, your works, and even have started reading The Wife Stalker, and it's really cool. It's a good story.
Thank you.
I'm just going to read the bio here, and we'll get started, and then let you guys just give us a little bit of talk about whatever you want to. I'm kind of very curious about the book publishing world, because you publish for a HarperCollins, which is just a big publishing company, and I think there's so much that you could teach us about that part of the writing life. There's the writing life, and then there's the publishing life, and you guys are really kind of in both, and it's a different world than I think some of us are familiar with. So let me go ahead and read the bio that you have given us about Liv. Liv Constantine is the pen name of sisters Lynne Constantine and Valerie Constantine. Together, they are the best-selling author of the Reese Witherspoon Book Club pick, The Last Mrs. Parrish, The Last Time I Saw You, The Wife Stalker, and The Stranger in the Mirror, coming July 2021. Their critically acclaimed books have been praised by USA Today, The Sunday Times, People Magazine, and Good Morning America, among many others. Lynne and Valerie are national and international best-selling authors, and their books have been translated into 28 languages, are available in 33 countries, and are in development for both television and film. Lynne is a former marketing executive with a master's degree in business from Johns Hopkins University. She has explored coral reefs all over the world, sunken wrecks in the South Pacific, and fallen in love with angelfish in the Caribbean. When Lynne's not writing, you can find her curled up with her Labrador and golden retrievers, reading a good book or walking the beach thinking up devious plans for her characters. Lynne also writes the Jack Logan series under the pen name L.C. Shaw. To learn more about her other books, visit lcshawauthor.com or connect with her on Instagram or Twitter at LC Shaw Author. Lynne is a board member of International Thriller Writers. Valerie. Valerie has always loved books and spent many nights reading by the light of her bedside lamp until 3 a.m. She lives with her husband and their brilliant Cavalier King Charles babies, Zorba and Da Vinci. Early in her career, she served as a White House assistant in the president's scheduling and advance office planning presidential trips and travel, and has visited over 40 foreign countries. She has a degree in English literature. When she's not writing, you won't find her, as she and her husband will be traveling to some faraway destination. So let me just introduce to the group now, the sister team, Lynne and Valerie Constantine, Liv Constantine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful to be here,
Yes.
especially among Greeks, with our favorite audience, always favorite gatherings. And Lynn's going to start, I think.
I believe so. So I'm Lynne over here. And we've been looking forward to it as well. It's always great talking to other writers. A question that we often are asked is, how did we get started writing together? And it happened over, 15 years ago now. I don't even know how many years ago, probably or
Maybe.
longer. Yeah, longer actually.
Yeah.
Actually more, because my kids are 20. It was before my kids were even born. And, you know, we were always great readers, and we read a lot of books about other nationalities. You know, we liked reading family sagas, and we noticed that there were mostly about Italian families or Jewish families or Chinese families, and very, very little about Greek families. And as Valerie and I and both of our brothers all married non-Greeks, and our children, especially my children, they never even got to meet any of my grandparents. So we wanted to leave a legacy for them. We wanted them to understand what it was like growing up as a Greek American with a lot of the traditions and experiences that we had. So we worked together to write a book called Circle Dance, which was published back in 2000, I think. Yeah, something like that. And we didn't really know anything about writing. I went and bought a book called How to Write and Sell Your First Novel. We followed the book, we outlined, we were both working full time. So we used to write, I think we used to have to write, I think maybe 3 pages or 5 pages a week. And we would get together. This was before email, internet, all of that. So we physically would print the pages out, get together, exchange them, talk about it. Finally, after about a year, we took a week off from work. Valerie came to my house and brought her laptop and plugged everything in a table, and we worked day and night for about a week, and we finished it. And we thought, great, we're done. Now we're gonna send it off. It's gonna get published. It's gonna be an Oprah pick, and we're on our way. And of course, that didn't happen. So we went through rejection after rejection, and we didn't understand at the time that when you finish your first draft, you've only begun, and that there are many more edits and drafts that are necessary. So, and of course, our mother read it and loved it and couldn't understand why it wasn't immediately published and in every bookstore in the country. So that took, I guess, maybe 2 or 3 years. We did finally find a Greek publisher, small publisher, who published it. And we had a launch party, and we were very excited. And I think maybe there was 2,500 copies printed. And then I had twins at the time, and we moved to Connecticut. So we kind of stopped our writing. And oh, you know what? I think I actually moved too far. Valerie, you were supposed to take over. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's Lynn.
That's me. Just kept going.
She's the baby, and
so go ahead.
she just kept going and going. That's okay.
Yes.
Well, I will just show you. Here's as Lynn said, we did finally find a publisher, but also she briefly went over the fact that this was in the days before email and laptops. So you couldn't carry a computer around with you. We had these big chunky things that sat on your desk and you had your power thing on the floor. And because you couldn't email, it was just starting. I think email was just coming into offices. So to send a manuscript off to an agent, you had to print it out and mail it. And it's this thick. So we spent a lot of time at Kinko's or printing places, and then of course it costs money to mail it out, and the turnaround was so long.
Yeah, you
didn't get anything back for a few weeks, sometimes 2 months, and they would say that to you. Don't expect any. If you hear from us, it'll be in 2 months, but you may just never hear. So it was a really, really different publishing world then. Not just publishing world. I mean, obviously everything has just speeded up. Everything is like the speed of light now. But anyway, we did find a small publishing house that published mainly Greek scholastic books. And he took us on, and this is the first cover that publishing house designed, which we loved. It was a paperback, but it was a cool paperback because it had that.
Right.
And so, and we went to Greek festivals. We took and as Patty said, that's where Patty and I met, because you were doing the same thing. You had your book, and we were behind our little booths at the festival. And then we would go, I went to Icarian conventions up and down the coast, at different Greek conventions, different churches, Philoptochos, and so that was really our main audience. The other funny thing that happened right before the book got published was a movie came out.
Mm.
And the movie was My Big Fat Greek Wedding. We were like, oh, came out before, but not that our book is a comedy or anything, you know, hers obviously was quite a different animal, but anyway, that we just thought that was interesting. When we went back later, as Lynn said, we thought, oh, it's going to be in all the bookstores, it'll be everywhere. That doesn't happen, especially with a small publishing house. And so that was one of the reasons we had to make appearances. But when we went back, we did buy the rights back to Circle Dance so that we could, because really after many, many years, it was still for sale, but it wasn't really doing anything. And we thought, well, just buy the rights back. And we wanted to go back and edit.
Yeah.
Because one of the big things that we have learned in this process, and it is a process, is that especially when you have first started, you might think the book is finished before it really is. And the idea that you don't need an editor, unless you're really stellar and just amazing, you probably do need an editor. I think we all, and you're writers here, so you probably know that too. So we went back and we edited it. It could definitely have taken a professional editor as well, but that didn't happen. So then the next iteration of it was this, which of course is Mykonos, yes?
Yeah, I think so.
Mykonos, it looks like with the nice windmill. So this was the once it was published under our own publishing company, but you know, it still didn't make it into all the bookstores, and it didn't make it onto Oprah. And our mother said she was never watching Oprah Winfrey again. And I don't think she did after that, right?
She was our staunchest fan, absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
She'd walk into a bookstore and say, oh, look at all these books. Why isn't your book here? So that was the beginning. And as Lynn said, we pretty much stopped after that. We were at different points in our life. There's 13 years between us. So Lynn was just, she had little children. My children at that point were gone. And so she began to homeschool. So would you like to take that over?
Sure. That took all my energy and all my time and all my creativity for 5 years, I guess, until my children went to school in middle school. And I saw an ad in Writer's Digest for Thriller Fest in New York. And we were living in Connecticut at the time. So we were about an hour from the city. And I said to my husband, you know, maybe I'll go to this conference. It looks really interesting. And he said, yeah, I think you should. So I went, and I'm a writer. I wrote this one book, 8 years ago or whatever.
Tell them, explain what Thriller Fest is.
I will. So and that's the older sister being very, bossy, telling you what to do. So I go to Thriller Fest, and it is a conference it's mostly for thriller mystery writers, but really it's about writing craft. So it's the first couple of days, it's craft classes taught by best-selling authors like Lee Child, R.L. Stein. I'm trying, who else, Valerie? Names are escaping me.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that the names just go away?
Slaughter. Yeah, I mean, all the big names in thriller writing, and then there are panels for the rest of it. But what's really nice about it, it's very friendly. Even the most established writers are very friendly to the new writers. They have cocktail parties and a lot of events, and it's just a really good networking. And then they also have agents on one of the days that you can pitch your book to. So again, I'm feeling great. Like, I've written this one book, and I'm meeting people younger than I am who've written 10, 15, 20 books already. And I'm sort of feeling like a real slouch. And I thought, if I'm going to call myself a writer, then I need to get serious and really write. So it was very motivational. I had my laptop. I took a million notes. I was like super, super energized. I came home and I said to Valerie, you have to come with me next year. And she said, but I'm not a thriller writer. Little did she know one day she would be. And I said, it doesn't matter. It's just good writing craft. So I came home, and that's when I built my website. I think it may have been even after that. I can't remember if it was when we put Circle Dance online, but we just really got very, very, very serious. I had been working on a thriller. I used to work in marketing, and I was writing this thriller for years and years and years every night. So I finally finished that. I began to pitch that to agents. And then Valerie said, I think I would be interested in collaborating again. And so I said, okay, great. And then I'll let Valerie take over from here.
So we talked about what we would like to write about, trying to think of a story and something that would be twisty, sort of a psychological thrill. Well, actually, I'm sorry, let me back up. We wrote a book that was about friendship, right?
Yeah.
Two friends, and a betrayal, and what that does to a friendship and how that is healed. And so it was pretty much women's fiction, and it was set in Maryland, where I live. The title of it was Black-Eyed Susans, because Black-Eyed Susans are the state flower of Maryland. If you've ever watched the Preakness, you see all those Black-Eyed Susans around the winning horse. So we worked on this book for a year, and we would commit to writing a certain number of words per week, and then check in with each other almost daily. Fortunately, then we had computers that allowed you to do that. And it was good because we were holding each other accountable. And that's, I think writing solo, that can be a little bit difficult. It makes it easier if you know that there's somebody holding you accountable for these words. And at the end of the week, you have to say, okay, here are my pages. I sit down every day and I write. So we finished that book and we began to submit it to agents, and we kept getting rejections, very kind rejections. People reject you very nicely now, because I guess there have been too many famous writers who publish their rejection letters afterwards that are so horrible, and people are like, oh, what a crazy agent that was to not take that book that became so wonderful. So they're very nice now when they reject your book. And then we decided that since we were getting these rejections, and some of them were helpful, actually, some of them really said, here's where it, it just didn't really catch me, or I was okay until this, it needs, here's what it needs, and which were pretty general sort of criticisms, but still helpful. So we decided that we needed to probably use a freelance editor, and we did that. We sent the book to an editor, and again, the Thriller Fest, the whole thing of networking with other writers is so valuable, because that's where you find, you can talk to other writers and say, who's a good editor, what have you had experience with, who's a good agent, all of those kinds of things. So I would just say, as writers, the more networking that you can do, and especially with published authors, then the more that you have at your disposal. But anyway, so we worked with this agent, and we sent it back out after his comments and our edits, and we kept getting rejected still.
But almost, we would get people asking for like 50 pages or 100. So it was sort of halfway there. It wasn't like before, but it was just,
right.
This one said it's just like a near miss. It was just something that wasn't exactly right.
It was a little bit, yes.
Yeah.
So it definitely had improved.
Yeah.
And so we put it away. And I think that is another piece of advice that both of us would agree is a good piece of advice for writers. When you've reached a point where you feel like, I've worked on it, and it's just sort of, then it's sort of becoming just a drudge, put it away, and maybe you'll get it out of the drawer again and go back to it a year later, 2 years later, whatever, and start another project. And that's what we did. And that was hard. That's a hard thing to do, to take a year or 2 years worth of work and just put it away and say, well, this we're finished with this one for a little bit. So I'm trying, so then we wrote The Last Mrs. Parrish.
Yes.
Lynn was visiting me in Annapolis. We were taking a walk and we were just talking. We weren't even really talking about an idea for another book. We were just talking to each other and talking about the whole phenomenon of women, women who target a man who is married because he's wealthy or be powerful for whatever reason, and have no compunction about going after this person, even though they might have a wife and a family. And one of us said, wouldn't it be great if it just didn't turn out the way somebody expected it to turn out? You get this husband and then all of a sudden it's not so rosy and wonderful. And I think we just both looked at each other at that point and said, that's the book. And so that was the kernel of the idea for the beginning of the idea. And then we were really excited at that point and talked and began to develop it. And I'm looking to see if,
Yeah.
So can you take it over? Yeah.
I'll take over from here. Yeah. So we both knew that we just felt like a real propellant to get this book written. We felt like it was a very different idea. We were super excited about it and we wanted to write it as quickly as possible. And at the time, Valerie was the president of the Assistants League, which was a huge job for her. And I was pressuring her all the time to write. You remember, Valerie? I mean, it was a lot of, it was because we didn't have anybody else pressuring us, but
I was going to go crazy.
Right. Yeah. She had a lot on her plate and we got it written. And we decided, though, before we started submitting it, we really wanted to give it its best shot of getting an agent. And so we hired a freelance editor, again, that someone had recommended from Thriller Fest. And we were just going to have her do the first 50 pages, because that's, usually if you can kind of get the agent that far, right, then they're going to keep reading. So she did the first 50 pages and wrote back and gave it to us, and with no feedback. And I wrote her back and I said, well, we were just wondering, was the pacing okay? And she said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was so worried about hitting my deadline that I forgot to tell you. Yes, I loved it. The pacing was great. In fact, I was really sorry that I couldn't go the whole way. And Valerie's husband said, look, I'll pay for you to do a full edit. Just stop messing around, because of course it's expensive doing all of these things. And before you're published, it's a lot to keep putting out. So bless him, he did. And she edited the whole thing. And fortunately, what she said, raise your hand if you've read The Last Mrs. Parrish, because I don't want to spoil it for anybody if you haven't. You've read, okay, so I won't tell you. So the original book was split into 2 parts. And there was a main thing that occurred before the end of the first part, which kind of lessened the tension going into the second part, which we didn't even think about it. And she said, the second part is very interesting, but you already know the way you've written it, you already know what's going to happen. So you're not as nervous. So after maybe an hour conversation, we said, all right, what if we stopped it earlier and added a third part? And she's, we figured out a way to fix that. And really, she wasn't even doing a developmental edit. It was nice for her to even bring it up. And we were like really shocked at first because we thought this was like so great. And that small/large fix really could have been the difference between, that could have been that one just miss, I think, had we not had it happen, where people could have thought, because that tension. So again, this is where an outside professional can really see something that you're too close to see and can make a major improvement in your book. So we said, thank you. We made the fix and we decided, we had been to Thriller Fest, I think 3 times by now. So we knew some of the agents. So we had a list of our top agents and we were only going to send it to 5. And one of them, which we hadn't known, was an agent that Gretchen, our editor, used to be partners with, and she recommended her. She said, this is really right up her alley as well. So we sent it out to 5. The first one sent it back and said, well, this Amber is not a very nice person. I don't know why she just can't get her own life. So we knew she just totally missed the fact that this was a psychological thriller and that, the whole point. And then we didn't hear from one, another one. Well, so then the one that she recommended, we realized was going to be at Thriller Fest, which was in like a month. So I emailed her and said, by the way, we're going to be there. Maybe we could meet. And she's very lovely. She said, yeah, that would be great. I'll try to read it before then. and I'll, here's my number. I'll text you and we'll meet. So as the days are getting closer, I'm getting really nervous because I would read a lot of agent success stories, when I was getting all these rejections and so depressed, I'd look up and see how long did it take this person, because you need the encouragement. And most of them would say for the agent that they got, like they would get a call right away after the agent was 10 pages in saying, please don't give it to anybody else. And we didn't get that call. So I was like, oh, great. She probably doesn't like it. And we were not signed up for Agent Fest, which is the thing where you can pitch to agents there. So I got a text from the agent saying, you know what, I can't, my lunch is running over, but I'll have 10 minutes to talk to you in the lobby. And that's all it said. So I said to Valerie, okay, I'm sure she's just going to reject us nicely because she knows Gretchen. Then at the same time, another rejection came in. I said, maybe we should just pay the money and go do Pitch Fest because we don't want to squander the opportunity. So another friend editor of mine, who I was talking to, was having lunch with this agent. And so she left and she knew how I was like all nervous about it. I said, I haven't heard from her. I guess she doesn't like it. So just as I'm going ready to pay for Pitch Fest, I get a text from my friend and she says, I'm with Bernadette. You don't have to go to Pitch Fest. So I screamed, I ran down and told, Valerie, I still get choked up thinking about it. And she came in and in the Hyatt lobby, came up to us and said, we'd like to offer you representation. And we were like, well, we would like to take it. But, after whatever, 5, 10 years, it's really, I'm surprised that I'm still emotional about it, but it's quite something. So anyway, we were thrilled, and all the friends that we had made over the past 3 years celebrated with us. It was like the best place that really could have happened because, you're in the trenches with everyone. Everyone is constantly getting rejected. And really, I think getting the agent is often harder than getting an editor. So anyway, we signed with her, and she said to us, when we get back, because this was July, it's a slow time for publishing. And when we get back, I'm going to show it to my partner, the person who owns the agency, and we will let you know whether or not you need to do more work on it before we send it out. And so a week later, I got a call and she said, well, Victoria read it. That's her boss. And I'm waiting for her to say, and she hated it, and never mind, we don't want to represent you. And she said she has the flu, but she couldn't put it down, and she loved it. And it doesn't, we're ready to just go right out with it. And what's next? I'm trying to think if Valerie goes next. Yep. So then they sent it out, and I'll give it back to Valerie now.
So they, as Lynn said, it was the end of, it was July at that point. And she said to us, now I'm going to send it. So what they do, they send it to every publisher. There were probably 30 people on the publishing list that, and she sent us that list. Here's who I'm sending it to. And she said, but August, people take off. It's a really slow time. And then Labor Day comes. She said, so don't be surprised if we don't hear anything until maybe the middle of September, or even the end of September.
Right.
We said, fine. We were just thrilled when we saw the list of who
Right.
was sent to, and you made me emotional too, Lynn.
Sorry.
A week later, she called us and she said, well, we have 2 preemptive offers, which means that, the 2 publishing houses have offered money, an advance in order to take it off the table from other publishers. And we couldn't believe it. And one was HarperCollins and the other was William Morrow, which are under the same umbrella. And she said, so and then she gave us the figure for the advance, which was quite generous, and we were floored. So we had to talk to an editor at each publishing house and just determine which one we felt more comfortable going with. And we chose Emily Griffin, who was at HarperCollins. But then once again, and then she edited the work. It's just amazing how many times a book can be edited, because here we had gone through an edit with Gretchen, not a complete one, and the agency felt it was ready. But publishing houses all have editors. And so we went through at least two rounds, didn't we, Lynn? With
so,
Emily for on one parish. So that took a while, and then it was published the following year. That was in 2016, right? In September, and then it
On my anniversary, actually. It seems
Oh,
like
yeah.
most of these them have like significant dates as it works
yeah,
out. right?
yeah, they do. So yeah, so it was published the following November.
October.
Oh, it was October. Okay.
Yes.
I don't keep thinking November. It was published in 2017. And
Yeah.
so the first, and it was, and the reviews were really good. I mean, it was just, it was like this out of body experience, really, because I think we couldn't believe it. You're sort of numb and not really, I shouldn't say not enjoying it, but it doesn't even seem real,
Right.
you know. And the first really big thing that happened was that it became a People magazine pick. And so as soon as we got that word, I was at Lynn's when that happened. We always seem to be together.
Yes,
It happened, right? So I was at Lynn's, and they called us to tell us that it was in People, you know how they do, they'll do 3 books and they say, here's a good read for you. And it was in People. So we flew to CVS to pick up People magazines, and I'll show you. I still, of course, we all have.
Yes.
So here's what, when we get there, we got in line, and then we said we would like, I think we got 12 copies, so
I
that
think so. Yeah.
each have 6.
Yeah.
And here's the cover of the magazine that it's in. It was the Harvey Weinstein, you know, right? So, and the woman behind us looked at us buying all of these covers, the Harvey Weinstein People thing, and sort of looked at us like, and Lynn turned around and said to her, he's a friend of ours. And she, but anyway, we thought, well, this will be a big seller because Harvey's on the cover. So that was kind of a good thing, right? But there was a really interesting story that went along with People. I'll try to not make this too long, but when we got that, you know, our mother loved People magazine, and our mother wasn't alive at this point. So she died before this happened, before we got published. And as I said, she loved People mag. She subscribed to it, so she got People magazine every week. And we were saying, when we came back from the CVS, we said, oh gosh, wouldn't it be so nice if Mom were here and she could see this? She'd be so proud. And then we looked at each other and said, maybe she can see this. So that night we had we had a presentation to do at a bookstore in New Jersey. So we went and we did the presentation, and afterward, and we were spending the night there. And so we went to dinner afterwards. My son was with us. So it was Lynn, my son, and myself. And we went to this restaurant. Lynn ordered a glass of wine while we were waiting to get our table. And they brought her a glass of wine in a little teeny glass. And she said, can I have like a wine glass for this? And the waitress, and they said, well, we don't serve wine. And unless you buy the bottle, you get a small glass. So Lynn had her wine and you know, wasn't happy about it. So then we were seated, and she ordered another glass of wine, and she said to the waitress, I'd really like to have this in a real wine glass instead of this little teeny thing. And the waitress said, I'm sorry, but you know, this is just our tradition. And unless you buy a bottle, and I said, just get the bottle. We'll all have a glass of wine. So the waitress brings the bottle of wine over, and she opened it at our table, put the 3 glasses out, and she put the corkscrew. She left the corkscrew on the table.
The opener. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That is a corkscrew. I'm thinking of the.
Yeah, it is. So now our mother's name is Virginia, and but everyone called her Ginny. So the waitress, I think her name was Shirley or something, you know, she had her little tag on. Anyway, so she put the corkscrew down and she left, and she put it in front of me. And so I picked up the corkscrew, and the name on it was Ginny. And I picked it up and I said to my son and to Lynn, I said, look at this. And we told the waitress, and she said, I borrowed that. I forgot mine, and I borrowed that one tonight from
Wow.
one of the other servers. And so we just felt like that was such a sign from God that, yeah, she could see it. It was one of the coolest things that that happened in that, right? So the other one that the other big one, of course, was Reese Witherspoon pick, and I'm going to let Lynn tell you about that.
Right. So again, we were together. We were at Valerie's doing a book club. I mean, I think that was November, because I think the tour started in October, and then I came down for you. And my agent called me or sent me an email and said, when do you have some time? Emily, who's our editor, and I need to talk to you. So I'm like, well, what are we in trouble or something? Like, I felt like we were being called to the principal's. It's like, no, everything is okay, but we just need to talk to you both on the phone. So we said, all right, well, we'll call you when we get back to to Valerie's house. So we're sitting at Valerie's table, each on an extension, and Colin, Valerie's husband, is sitting there. And they called us, and they said, are you sitting down? And we said, yes. And then they said, the last Mrs. Parrish has been chosen to be a Reese Witherspoon pick. So we were like, why? We were, of course, exclaiming and, going on and on. And then they said, but until it's announced, you can't tell anyone, or they'll pull they'll get upset, and, it could jeopardize it. So we hung up, and of course we couldn't say anything to Colin. And even, he's not great at keeping secrets anyway, but even if he was, we were nervous to tell anybody. So of course he looked at us like, wow, what just happened? And I'm thinking quickly, I said, oh, there's going to be an article in the paper about us. And he was like, okay, what you so excited about? So, right, yeah. So we had to keep it quiet. We were afraid to even Google it or do anything. And it was like 3 weeks, I think, right before it was announced.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, that was a major thing, because she has so many followers. As soon as that got announced, I think immediately it shot up on the Amazon charts to like number 3, and it was a real boost for the book. And the book club has really gotten even more, it's gotten bigger, and they're doing more. Like we just did on Friday, which was a lot of fun, an Ask Me Anything chat on the Reese app with a bunch of, with a lot of the members of the book club. So they're really supportive, even beyond picking, the book pick, which is really wonderful. So, and they do a lot for literacy. So it was such an honor to be chosen for that. Because it really, Reese is sort of like the new Oprah pick, right? And again, so I'm sure Mom is seeing that too.
Right.
So that's our journey. So now we're writing a book a year. I'll show you. So this was the hardcover of The Last Mrs. Parrish. You can probably see behind, well, you can't really see them. I'll let Valerie, I don't know if you have them with you, if you have the paperbacks.
No.
No, this is the second book, The Last Time I Saw You. The paperbacks are all different, except for The Wife Stalker, which is, we love this cover, is the same in paperback. And then coming in July is The Stranger in the Mirror, which is this one. And the Last Time I Saw You actually takes place in Baltimore, and some in Annapolis, I can't even remember now. And then,
yeah.
And then the books that I've written alone is The Network and The Silent Conspiracy. And these are more, they have a conspiracy thriller and a Christian theme to them. So